Hello, friends. Welcome to my podcast. It's been a while since so far only did one episode, and a lot has happened in my life. Maybe I will talk about that in the future. But for now, welcome to my second episode ever of my podcast. All right, so building your own philosophy, part one. An introduction, the why, and the what. So today is just the introduction that covers the what and why of building your own philosophy. Why should we do it? And what does it mean to do that? In the future sections of this podcast, we'll talk about the how, or at least my example or a single approach of how I did it. In future podcasts, we'll talk about building essentially a metaphysical framework that will explore ontology, or the nature of existence, or reality rather. We'll explore determinism versus free will, and we'll also talk about the dichotomy of the universal and the particulars. We can then use this scaffold to philosophize our personal existential experiences. But again, for today, we'll just talk about why we should build our own philosophy and what does it mean to do so. So let's start with the why. Today we're going to be guided by Karl Jaspers and Fredrick Nietzsche in our explanation of why we should do it and what does it mean to build our own philosophy. I'm going to adopt their phraseology. They called this type of thinking philosophizing, which I really like. They both kind of agreed that it's necessary to philosophize in your life to have a richer, more authentic experience of life. They're both existentialists. Some might debate whether Fredrick Nietzsche is, but many do put him on that side. But they had slightly different perspectives, or in some cases, very different perspectives. But they both agreed that on the importance of philosophizing. Jaspers also believed that philosophizing is a way to transcendence, his philosophy of existence. Nietzsche, on the other hand, believed in this concept of first, he believed that philosophizing is the way to experience an authentic life, that you're not just going along with some dogma or somebody else's way of living your life. In a way, he was big on this concept of will to power, which many people confuse. It's not a political power, or not just a political power. It's more like the underlying drive to existence. It's this creative energy and life force that allows us to grow, better understand ourselves and the world, and create a world around you by your actions, thoughts, emotions. He called that the will to power, and he thought that philosophizing is a big piece of building that muscle. In a way, we're just going to kind of lean on these folks because I actually agree with both Karl Jaspers and Fredrick Nietzsche as to the importance of philosophizing. So essentially, that's our why. We want to philosophize in our life, or build our own life philosophy, to generate this life force or creative energy in our life, and to live a more authentic and richer experience of our existence. So now let's get into the what of our discussion. What does it mean to build your own philosophy? Or more specifically, what does it mean to philosophize? You could say that it's a way it's an act of building our own philosophy of our own existence. And that's a little circular. So let's deconstruct it a little bit. We grow our own philosophy by growing our conception and understanding of everything around us and how we fit into that picture. It's about thinking through and making sense how the cosmos functions on a metaphysical level, the nature of reality in relation to our own existence, essentially. We can't just adopt some metaphysical or ontological framework and just call it our own, because the whole point of philosophizing is that each person has to do it themselves. The philosophizing basically means that based on your current understanding, your thoughts, your cognitions, your emotions, your experiences, that's what you are capable of constructing and seeing the world. And so you use what you have at your own disposal right now to kind of generate your own philosophy. There is no right or wrong answer because it's based on your own conception of reality at the time that you're doing it. And it's necessary that it's your own because you need to believe in it. You're not convincing someone else of this philosophy. You're not generating some sort of philosophical thesis with universal principles that other people are going to adopt. This is just for you. So in a way, it's kind of liberating. There's no right and wrong answers. But at the same time, it's very difficult because you really start examining how you see the world and how you fit into it. And so that's kind of what I see philosophizing. And there are different approaches. And again, Karl Jaspers and Nietzsche were both existentialists. And I'm not a pure existentialist. I definitely subscribe to existentialist tenets in many parts of my philosophy or philosophizing, but not in all. So I take a different approach than someone who's a pure existentialist might. The reason why is someone like Nietzsche really didn't believe in any sort of ontological framework to see the world through. He didn't believe in universals, really, and a lot of existentialists really believe in a subjective existence. That is, we exist first, and we create our own meaning based on that. So existence comes primary, and in a way, this makes everything subjective. So there are no universals. So there's no point of looking at certain frameworks that might point to how reality works or exists. I don't buy that 100%. I believe that it's important to explore other people's view or certain, at least, frameworks of how you can perceive nature to kind of enrich your own experience. And again, maybe I could be wrong. I'm an amateur philosopher, but that's kind of how I see it, and I'll dive deeper into what my philosophy is like and how I philosophize. But I do believe that there are some universals. I do believe in some parts of our cosmos are purely material. I'm not a materialist, though. I have a different conception. So what we're gonna do is in future episodes we'll talk about essentially taking some ontological frameworks, and ontology just means like a way of explaining what nature is or what stuff is made out of. What is nature? What is the nature of being, essentially? So we'll explore some ontological frameworks like materialism, idealism, relational and process ontology, dualism, and so forth. And we'll see how we can kind of piece these together as much as we would want to build our own kind of framework, our own Frankenstein, so to speak. And again, we're not trying to build something that is universally applicable to everyone. Every one of us has to go through this process, and your Frankenstein, your ontological Frankenstein, might look very different from mine, which is fine. But the whole point is each person has to go through it. And I'm kind of sharing this with the world, but it doesn't mean that it's a perfect philosophy. It's a perfect philosophy for me at this current time, you could say. And then after exploring ontology, we'll talk a little bit about determinism, because that's kind of a passion project for me. I've been reading a lot about free will and determinism and so on, some dangers of determinism and how we might look at that. And then we'll talk about about universals and particulars. Like, what can we universalize? Like a pure materialists will say that everything is universal, essentially, or a lot of materialists will be determinists, which means that they would basically be able to universalize everything if they had the possibility to, while someone like Nietzsche, who's more bent towards the existentialist leaning, he is more on the particular side, that you can't really universalize anything because our existence essentially creates reality around us. So again, there's two very different and competing schools of thought. And again, maybe this is how my mind works. I take some from one, some from the other, and again, all under some kind of grounding and guidance in spirituality. And I'll talk about, when I talk about determinism, it's also one of the reasons why I became spiritual, because when I talk about determinism, our only way out of determinism and pure materialism, and from my perspective, is some kind of infinite or God. But anyways, that's for future podcasts. Thank you for listening. Have a wonderful day.